Me Likey Do the Cha-Cha. Ladies and gentlemen.
Giggity. All right.
Seems quiet. Too quiet.
I'm Batman. Gotham is never safe without me.
What time is it? It's 7 o'clock. Okay, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
You can attach towers? Shut up. Impromptu performance this evening, which I must say was indeed a welcome distraction. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. You're very kind.
This is gonna be funny.
I can't. Good evening. Hello. Welcome. Manja, you crack me up. Me likey do that cha-cha. Good evening, Bookfather. Nice hat. Thank you. It's my only option to impersonate Sherlock Holmes. It's about as good as it gets. So, sorry about that, but it is the way it is. Manja, I hope you're well. Blueberry, thank you for the lurk. Good job on face planting while getting first place. Make sure you put some ice on that. Ons getting second. Ons, I hope you're well. Manja is taking third place. And yet, Jesse, I know. Yeah, that is good. Yes, Manja, I've been kept up to date and waking up, as you say. That is good. I keep you pulled up. I know you do, because every time I check OBS, you're there. I'm honored. Don't tell me if you do that for other people. Just let me have this moment. Okay? I'm just kidding. Oh, man. Manja, you've given us quite the roller coaster. Get it together, man. That's all I'm saying. Well, it's been a mess. Yeah. Yes, it has. All I can hope is that you're on the mend. Weird stuff left and right. I would agree with that statement. Absolutely. This is your book theme inspired puzzle for the evening, by the way. For those of you that wish to puzzle, you can keep the moment forever, as I don't do for everyone, or rather anyone else. Thank you, Jesse. It's not creepy, I promise. It can be creepy, it's fine. What? I mean, on top of everything else, they gotta throw leukemia at me? Yeah, right? Jeez. Fucking A, man. Stuff happens. Stuff does happen, but it shouldn't be happening to a good guy. Anyway, I have some workouts to do that have accumulated before we start reading. So, while you are enjoying the puzzle, the calming music, the ambiance. I'm gonna do some workouts. The question is what to do first. I got 40 squats, 30 push-ups, 35 hammer curls, and regular curls. Sheesh. Let's see if we can knock out the push-ups. Yes. Oh, son of a... I thought it was 20. It's 30. Daddy left me. I'm mad. Okay, so I did 20 of each. That'll help us get there, right? Surely. It's a good start. I'm fine. Oh God. All right, let's see. Let's knock down the squats. Oh crap. Nope. There we go. All right, cool. 20, 20, 35, 35. Excellent. Oh, no, wait. Push-ups is only supposed to be 10. My bad. There we go. That's better. All right, I'm taking this hat off now. It's warm. There we go. We'll just put you over there. Very good, chaps. I hope everyone's had a as good as weekend as possible. I'm excited to be here. I'm so looking forward to continuing our story. The Whistle of Revenge. When we left off, it was very much a dire moment for Sherlock and Neen, aka Irene Adler. There's not much they can do. The police, they're just waiting. They're waiting for a ransom note that they are sure will arrive. And as we know from, reading the story from Nico's perspective, their son who was kidnapped, that is the intention. So, let's get into it. You played Schedule 1 this weekend? You were, doing some dealing there, Matt? Dishing some stuff out? ons. My God. Chat. It's ons. All right. We got the puzzle. And now, lap races on Marbles on Stream. So, let's go back to 5. 5 was a good lap number, I think. All you have to do is type !play to play. 60 seconds on the clock. This is a Grand Prix. Do not let me beat you. Because if you let me, I will. Schedule 1, but it's actually Schedule I. Oh. That makes a lot more sense now. Okay. I have my hot tea that I almost wobbled too much and made it spill. Mad, get your ball in there. Jesse, you too. I know you're doing a puzzle, but you don't want to miss out. Otherwise, it's just me and Ons head to head. Which means I win again. Just kidding, you might win. I just doubt it. All right. Chapter 8 starts on page 58. It's from Neen's perspective. And, Jesse, you were just 15 seconds too late, I think. I'm sorry. Next time. Next race, for sure. In Italian, the chapter title is Liberazione, which just means deliverance. So if you didn't learn anything today, you can now say you know how to say deliverance in Italian. Liberazione. Liberazione. Okay. Anywho, thank you for being here. Sit back, relax. I'm going to read you a story. The inevitable ransom note arrived the following morning, dropping through the letterbox in an unassuming brown envelope bearing a local postmark. It was marked private and confidential and addressed to Signor and Signora Sapori. Signora Sapori. Sherlock opened the envelope carefully with a paper knife, examining it closely with his magnifying glass. The envelope contained 2 notes of the same type on the same paper. One from the perpetrator and the other from Nico. I gasped as Sherlock read the contents of the first one, which was so dark and harrowing that I could barely contemplate what I was hearing. Hello, Signor and Signora Sapori. Your son is well and will remain safe if you follow our instructions. On Friday, you will come to a location to be advised and bring 10,000 lira in small unmarked notes. Do not alert the polizia, or you will never see your son again. We enclose a letter from the boy and a smaller envelope containing proof of life. Oh, shoot. I hope it's a photograph. After Sherlock read this singular narrative, I opened the small stuffed envelope with some trepidation to find it contained a sizable chunk of Nico's newly cut hair and a smattering of fingernail clippings. Angry and distressed, all I could think of as I stared at them was the story of Vincent van Gogh, who in 1888 severed the lower part of his left ear, wrapping it up before allegedly presenting it to a prostitute in a local brothel. Yeah, I'm sure that's what Nico is doing right now. You want some more fingernail clippings? Come on, there's plenty where that came from. Ugh. Okay, that was a gross thought. I shuddered, thanking God the kidnappers have not resorted to such extreme measures. The probability of such event was unimaginable. An overwhelming sense of melancholy washed over me as I held my son's precious note between my shaking hands, digesting Nico's narrative in his distinctive, neat handwriting. Taking a deep breath, I read the words. My dearest mother and father, I am well and don't want you to worry. My abductors treat me kindly. I have ample food and a book to help pass the time. I miss you all so much, and I can't wait for our family to be reunited. In the meantime, please make my excuses and tell my good friend Turidu Canino and his sister Camoni, that I have a cold and cannot attend the World Fair and church service on Wednesday as planned. It's important you remember, as I fear there may be grave repercussions otherwise, and I have no wish to disappoint my friends, especially Camoni, who, as you know, is like a sister to me. Take care until we meet again. Your loving son, Nico. Now, if you remember from the last read, Nico was planning to put in a secret message that only Sherlock and Irene, aka Neen, would understand. It comes from some of the paintings he saw on the wall. 60 seconds on the clock, by the way. Paintings on the wall and just other things that he noticed. For example, that he's in a church, stuff like that. So, very, very smart boy. He obviously doesn't have a sister and a cousin and blah, blah, blah. Thank God our son is safe. Well, at least for now. I cried, furrowing my brow. But what does Nico mean about the church and the World Fair? We already visited the World Fair. And who on earth are Turidu and Camoni? A wiry smile passed over Sherlock's face, his usual pale cheeks made even more sallow by his heavy cold, now flushed with color. This message from our beloved son was a tonic for both his system and his soul, so much more than any laudanum could give. But don't you see, my darling Neen, our clever son has given us a clue to his whereabouts. Whatever do you mean? These are not random made-up people. Neen, you of all people must surely be aware of Turidu Canino's identity. Yes, of course, I agreed. Turidu is the main character in Cavalleria Rusticana, but Sherlock, Turidu is a fictional character. Yes, I know that, but he's important to Nico. I furrowed my brow. Perhaps Nico saw the same name somewhere and recognized it from a discussion with Caruso in the restaurant. I remember Turidu came up in conversation. From the clues in Nico's note, he likely spotted the name on a gravestone. See how he's dramatically underlined the word grave? Camoni is an anagram of Monica. Perhaps a shortened version of Veronica, or Sister Saint Veronica of Milan. The kidnappers likely hold our son in some religious order, a convent, a church, perhaps. We just need to find the resting place of any deceased bearing the name Turidu Canio. Country road, take me home to the place where I belong, West Virginia. I don't know the rest. And how do we do that? The Public Record Office should indicate any such burial sites, which the Church Record Office may give us the identity of any local churches depicting shrines to Saint Veronica. So let me get this straight. You believe Veronica represents the name of a church where Nico is possibly being kept hostage? Sherlock nodded. It's more than possible. On the contrary, it's highly probable. But there are many churches named after Saint Veronica in Milan. It's just a question of knowing where to start. At least now we have something to work with. What about the kidnapper's note? Were there any further clues? Sherlock pointed to the note. The kidnappers posted the letter locally. It's written in a woman's hand. Nothing remarkable about the note paper. Readily available from your commonplace local post office. The thin sheets of paper make the writing appear mean.
Oh! God damn it. Ah.
Rexter, thank you for the shout out. Make it, mean and untidy. It's also unrefined. Whoever wrote this is uneducated and certainly no lady. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. No, not at all. I love it when our friends are shouted out. But how can you know? I questioned, staring at my husband incredulously. Observe the heavy, exaggerated, high-pointed strokes, Sherlock said, pointing to the letter. This woman writes with authority and egotism, yet she's no mastermind. She's an operative working for someone else. So the question is, for whom and why? See how the full capitals slant to the left? I suspect she's of European origin, with a limited English vocabulary. Observing the spelling of hallo instead of hello, she's most likely German. Today is Tuesday. So we have 3 days before the ransom is due. In the meantime, we must gather as much information as possible. But we must be vigilant. We have no idea what these people are capable of. But I promise you this, Neen. If the perpetrators harm our boy in any way, they will not leave Milan alive. What about when we must pay the ransom? Do we need to go to the bank and risk attracting suspicion? No need, Sherlock said, shaking his head. I can cover the ransom from my money in the safe. Who's got that much money in their safe? First of all, I would need to own a safe. But then, good grief, man. During our conversation, I noticed Sherlock's jaw tensing slightly. Like me, he felt lost, angry, and confused. This profound feeling of fear and anxiety was equally unsettling and disturbing to him because, for the first time, it made him doubt himself. Not only as a consulting detective, but as a father and a husband, leaving him to question his extraordinary abilities. Ooh, Jesse took first place. Well done. Well done indeed. But can you remain first? This is a question. 60 seconds on the clock to get your marble on the track. May your ball be ever in your favor. We found ourselves at a crossroads, struggling to handle the emotion ramifications of Nico's abduction. Undoubtedly, Sherlock would be prepared to go through a burning building and lay down his life 1,000 times over for our family. But now, at least, there was a glimmer of hope, and we were one step closer to finding our son. My husband gazed at me pensively. I know that look, Sherlock. Do you have a lingering question you need to ask? He nodded, and his expression turned somber. I know of your dalliances with Ornstein and Norton. But were there any previous suitors I should know about? It's unlike you to be coy, Neen. I hesitated momentarily, taking in the implications of my husband's words, and then I reacted almost aggressively from a position of defense. I glared furiously at my husband, responding in a slightly raised voice. Sherlock, I am too tired to argue with you. But yes, I saw someone for a while before I married Godfrey. Define your relationship. Did this man declare himself? He replied matter-of-factly, his voice devoid of emotion. Sherlock, it was years ago. Why should it matter? In the scheme of things, it shouldn't matter at all, but somehow it does, and I need to know so I can exclude any such person from my inquiries. Was it a physical relationship? I shook my head, the words sticking in my throat as I attempted to convey them. No, nothing like that. Then, pray tell, what was it like? I sighed deeply. It was a spiritual alliance. His name was Henry Hodgson, a stockbroker from Southampton. We met at a concert in London after being introduced by friends. Our liaison ended after Henry discovered I had no romantic feelings, so nothing untoward happened, and we parted amicably. We stayed in touch until Henry married the artist Marissa Hoffman the following year, so no, Sherlock, I don't have a string of ex-lovers hiding in the wings, hell-bent on revenge if that's what you're implying. I replied sardonically, casting my husband a withering look. My posture stiffened as I took a small, sharp breath. Sherlock, how could you? My voice trembled with anger and hurt. Do you genuinely believe I would hide such secrets from you, a man who sees through everyone's mask? I was about to question him on his youth and bohemian cavalier approach to women and relationships. Still, something in the way he looked at me, those gray eyes filled with sorrow, made my heart lurch as I fought back tears, reminding me of how Sherlock had paid the ultimate price for his supercilious behavior with the loss of his firstborn son, who sadly died in the womb when Sherlock's fiancée Victoria Bennet suffered a catastrophic postpartum hemorrhage and tragically died herself. Jesse. Trying to come in here, take over the puzzle, take over the races. That ends now. 60 seconds on the clock. An agonizing silence between us seemed to last forever. Sherlock met my gaze. A haunted expression hung over his usual stoic features, a glimmer of vulnerability and desperation that I rarely saw in him. I'll stay out of the next one. I knew you couldn't resist. You shall stay out of none of them, Jesse. Your ball is more important to you than mine. That sounded weird, didn't it? Good. Forgive me, Neen, he murmured, his voice low and steady through a trace of pain edged in his words. It distresses me to suggest an impropriety. We're clutching at straws, and I must explore every possibility. however distasteful the questions may appear, to bring our son back to us. Why did the music stop? Pray tell. Next track, please. That was weird. Wait, it's playing the same song. Gosh darn it. Move on. Very? Yeah, I know. But that's how we like it here sometimes. Awkward. His face, usually carved in the hard lines of a man who'd faced countless dangers and secrets, now bore the unmistakable strain of a father's anguish. The sight softened my anger, replacing it with a deep and sincere understanding. I fell silent watching him, and then rose from my chair and put my arms around my husband, gazing into his eyes. Sherlock, my voice was a gentle whisper. My past holds no shadows that could harm us now. Only the one cast by this unspeakable loss. I stand before you a broken woman, a shell of the person I used to be. But this grief is not just mine to bear. So feeling sad, scared, uncomfortable, or whatever you feel is all right. Our son needs you to be his father, not just a detective. With the help of our good friend Salvatore and the Policia, together we will find Nico and bring him home. He nodded. His gaze had an iron resolve, resulting in a promise that nothing in heaven or on earth would deter him. Very well, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Then let us proceed, whatever it takes. Sherlock held my face in his hands. Forgive me, Neen, but you are missing the point. We will likely make illogical choices when swept away by emotion. So if I want to have any hope of finding our son and the monsters who took him, then I'll have to distance myself from you at times and become Holmes, the detective, the calculating machine. I won't lose another son. And I promise you this, I'll do everything I can to save Nico. I know you will. I understand, I said through tears that I thought I'd used up over the last few days. I realized that Sherlock was right. He must become Holmes, an independent entity devoid of emotion, not Sherlock, the loving husband. By trying to do both, he put himself at an impossible position. Solace and seclusion were imperative to him, enabling his remarkable brain to weigh up every piece of evidence. I kissed him tenderly on the cheek. We have some serious business to attend to. Yes, indeed, Sherlock said, agreeing. A moment of courage against a lifetime of regret. When we hit back, the miscreants won't see us coming, and they'll truly rue the day they took on the Supporties. So you have no objection to me assisting with your inquiries? You have an unfathomable voice, Neen, which makes you invaluable as a wife and an accomplice. We chose each other for a reason, all those years ago. Sherlock opened the safe and pulled out a pistol, carefully checking the barrel that contained 4 bullets before handing it to me. Keep this with you, day and night, And if you're approached or feel threatened in any way, then remember what I told you in Fearsol. Never recall your body to the enemy. Sherlock held out his hand. Come, we're close, Neen, to finding our son. It's time to assemble the missing pieces of the jigsaw and hunt the villains down like the dogs they are. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of Chapter 8. Night Marcher. Good to see you, sir. That was a fun chapter, not gonna lie. Some good tea. Some very good tea, if I do say so myself. Folks, Night Marcher is streaming himself right now, but not doing his usual unwritten roleplay in GTA 5. No, no, no. He is pew-pewing in Tarkov. Tarkov. Yes. Yes, indeed. Uh-oh. Brexter coming in for the kill. I mean win. That's what I meant.
Hello?
Hey,
Hey.
Hey.
before your dumbass tries to actually
That's the clip. Guess we'll never know. Did he do it? Was he as dumbass as the guy says he was then? He was then? Next map. The brick. Let's hit the bricks. First 5 laps for the winner. Exclamation point play. To play. And I will get started with Chapter 9. Chapter 9 is from Robert Barrett's perspective. Robert Barrett's perspective. It's simply titled Giano, aka Janus. Now, the one thing I'm not 100% sure about, or at least I don't remember, is Robert Barrett sounds like an English name, right? I don't think we've heard this name before, so I'm assuming it's like the antagonist. Maybe the person behind the kidnapping altogether. I don't know. Let's find out. I'm just going to assume he's British for the moment, because why not? Checking into the Majestic Hotel in Milan and signing the register as Robert Barrett was another stopgap before taking up the temporary position as manager of the prestigious racing table in Lombardy. Verticat. Hey, Lurky, while I play some games. Thank you for the lurk, Verda. What are you going to play, by the way? And I hope it's fun. Until then, I was hotel hopping, using several pseudonyms and disguises, which was nothing new. Some repo, yeah, I guess I could have guessed that. Yes. Good on ya. Good luck stealing stuff. It was the life I'd chosen. However, I was always careful not to draw attention to myself at the concierge desk and arouse suspicion. My overall demeanor and general... What? Benignity? Ah, man, I haven't seen that word in forever. My overall demeanor and general benignity, invariably complemented by a well-tailored suit added by various facial cover-ups and wigs, gave me the appearance of an honorable professional man. Like the Scarlet Pimpernel, I was the master of the 3 Ds: disguise, deception, and duality. I'd lost count on the endless false identities I'd used over the years, all because of the man who had cost me everything, the celebrated Detective Sherlock Holmes. Although it was 17 years since our paths last crossed, I had to maintain the facade of a false identity, even though most people believe me to have died in the Great Grimpen Mire on Dartmoor. The following events did nothing to diminish my habitual prejudice against the authorities. Even the Metropolitan Police dragged the bog and discovered no sign of my body. They were satisfied that Jack Stapleton had perished there. Everyone wrote me off, but I rose from the dust like Lazarus. Indeed, it was by sheer bloody-mindedness and pure instinct that I managed to claw my way to the island of refuge as I struggled through the thick fog. Since that fateful night, my life and freedom have been constantly scrutinized. I saw it as some kind of devil's island from which there was no chance to escape. Despite everything in Dartmoor and with Sir Henry Baskerville, I still considered myself a good man. I'd assumed that what happened on the moor would alter me, that I'd be devastated by my actions. But nothing changed, except the Bookfather winning the race. Next map. The circuit. 60 seconds on the clock. Good luck. But nothing had changed. I'd been robbed of my inheritance and denied my birthright. Those people deserve what happened to them. There was a wave of anger in those memories that couldn't be diminished. Your first kill, in many ways, was like your first kiss or sexual encounter. You're startled by its potency and look forward to it happening again. To those few confidants closest to me, including my wife, Beryl, I was nicknamed Janus after the Roman god of beginnings, transitions, time, and endings. He was often depicted with 2 faces looking in opposite directions, most appropriate for someone like me leading a double life. When I discovered Holmes was on my trail all those years ago, I devised an elaborate alibi for my wife so the police would exonerate her from any further investigation and wrongdoing. I owed her that at least, as, admittedly, I had mistreated her, even if it was for the greater good. But, as a dutiful wife, Beryl refused to give me up to the police, although I suspect it was more out of fear than love. It was true she'd been appalled by my actions and refused my request to participate in the Bakerville murders, leaving me no other option but to turn to the beautiful Laura Lyons, an impetuous young woman. Her husband, Frank, soon tired of domestic bliss and abandoned his wife after she miscarried, leaving Laura to fend for herself. She eventually found employment as a typist in the nearby town of Coombe Tracy. Still, besides her meager income, she depended upon the generosity of others, including Sir Charles Bakerville, who helped her in the past and with whom she struck up a close friendship. It was apparent Sir Charles was smitten with Laura. She was jaw-droppingly beautiful, a brunette with hazel eyes that appeared to look right through you. tall, statuesque, with a peaches and cream complexion reminiscent of a sulphur rose. She would turn the head of any man. I'm ashamed to say that to enable my murderous intentions towards Sir Charles, I pursued Laura relentlessly, preying on her precarious position in society, when out of desperation she turned from me for help. Like Sir Charles, I too struck up a friendship, although admittedly my motives were anything but honorable. I could tell Laura was flattered by my attention, so I seduced her with the promise of marriage on the proviso that she raised enough money to divorce the man responsible for abandoning her. Laura was terrified that Frank would come back and force her to live with him, something he was legally entitled to do if he thought fit. New legislation was passed in the late 1800s, assisting women to divorce their husbands, but because of the costs involved, the procedure remained exceedingly rare. I continued my courtship of Laura, spending hours discussing ways we could raise money for the divorce, freeing us to marry and start a new life together. I showered her with gifts and flowers, wined and dined her at the top restaurants, and spent many enjoyable weekends away at the best hotels until she was completely under my spell. Laura finally agreed to my suggestion to lure that old fool Sir Charles Bakerville onto the moor for what he believed would be a romantic rendezvous, and for what Laura assumed would be a plea to Sir Charles for financial help, until I gently explained what I needed her to do. At first, Laura was shocked by my suggestion, but when I explained that our future happiness was at stake, she reluctantly agreed to go along with my plan to seduce Sir Charles and secure the money in any way she could. Laura was used to a life of misogynistic men taking advantage of her, expecting sexual favors. She agreed to write the letter asking Sir Charles to meet her on the moors. Oh, the poor girl had no clue that Beryl, posing as my sister, was my wife. After writing the letter, Laura After writing the letter, Laura called to see me in great anxiety, and she'd explained she'd managed to procure the money from another source, an unexpected inheritance. I begged her not to cancel the meeting, saying I would handle everything, but instead, I sent my bloodthirsty hound Carlos in her place. When Laura heard of Sir Charles's death by heart attack the following day, she confronted me at our favorite beauty spot on the moors. When Dr. Watson interviewed her, Laura said she rebuffed his questions and denied asking Sir Charles to meet her. But when Watson explained he knew about the letter, Laura changed her mind. At first, she was upset that Sir Charles had not destroyed the letter, but she calmed down when Watson told her that the elder Bakerville had attempted to do so. When Watson told her he was trying to protect Sir Charles's reputation, she agreed to cooperate without giving away our relationship. I somehow managed to convince a distraught Laura that what happened to Sir Charles had been a tragic accident. But at least she now had the money for her divorce, while I had Sir Henry, the new heir to Bakerville Hall, to contend with. Now, with the means and money to support herself, I felt relieved when Laura's ardor suddenly cooled towards me. However, after she attempted murder of Sir Henry, Laura showed an invincible spirit rather than the weak, unassertive woman people assumed her to be. When Holmes revealed my plans, she turned devil's advocate, telling the detective everything she knew and agreeing to testify against me in court. As for Holmes and Watson, I later discovered they never thought Laura had anything to do with the crime, assuming she was a tool for the real criminal. Me. Beryl was of Latin American heritage and had an unforgiving nature. When she learned of my affair with Laura, she described it as an ultimate betrayal. The dynamics of our relationship changed, and all hell broke loose. Ah, yes. The Saber is the next map, once it loads. Beryl found it hard to conceal her contempt for my actions, and her passive unwillingness to assist in what she described as my wrongdoing, and her active sabotage when she tried to warn Sir Henry from stepping out onto the moor, almost scuppered my plans. But I loved Beryl so much that I forgave her. She told me I was beyond change, and she was right. Consequently, I never bothered to try. I realized long ago that redemption was not for the likes of me. Beryl never responded to any of my letters sent incognito, but then neither did she alert the police to the fact I was still alive. I purposefully kept my actual address from her. If she'd been questioned further by the Metropolitan Police, it would have been safe for her if she had no clue about my whereabouts. Even a little knowledge had drawbacks, multiplying the margin of error and, therefore, the risk of being caught. I knew that I'd hurt my wife very deeply, and that the risk of being discovered was ever present. Still, I was hopeful, and after a discreet passage of time, she would join me in Ireland once I'd established my business, taking on the role of an assistant trainer in County Kildare, a position found for me through the influence of my second cousin, Jim Sweeney. During the transition, I connected closely with my Masonic contacts in London and the Peaky Blinders, a criminal organization from the West Midlands that operated in Birmingham. This kept me updated on events in and around the capital. My job as a bloodstock agent and assistant trainer to Jim at his Maddenstown, County Kildare stables, which also acted as a cover for a small protection racket, was a calculated decision. Jim suggested I cut all ties with my previous occupations and interests to keep Holmes off the scent. He said I shouldn't underestimate the celebrated detective's remarkable powers of deduction. So I transitioned to a hard-headed countryman with considerable aplomb, becoming a man of mystery, a master of disguise and deception. Jim was a controversial figure in the horse racing fraternity. After being refused by the Jockey Club to set up in Newmarket, he based his racing and breeding operations on his home turf in Ireland. He briefly trained with Atty Parkinson at Sandyford near Dublin, where he was promoted to head lad, before becoming assistant trainer to Fergal McCabe at Maddenstown. When Fergal retired in 1890, Jim took over the license, and it was there in Maddenstown that I came to take up my position as assistant trainer. My wife was a delicate, sensitive soul, and all those months without me by her side, having to carry on the pretense that I was dead, began to take its toll. Beryl sadly succumbed to tuberculosis, which was rife in 1890s England. Still mama's mama. 31 months. My gosh, that is a long time. Thank you so much. How are you? How are you? How's your evening? I hope all is well. 5 squats. I just did a bunch of squats. Guess it's only right that we should add back to the squats. Oh, and also, let's see if you can land on page 233. Get squatty with it. Na 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 na. Let's see. Oh, page 26. I am so sorry. Thank you again very much for the resub. That is super kind of you. It is a pleasure to see you. We're very much getting involved with a brand new character to the story. It's dishing out a bunch of back history right now. But yes, it's so good. Robert Barrett, as I think he calls himself. I'm not sure these days, actually.
Come here, I'm gonna eat you! Get in my belly!
Thank you, Rexter. Oh well, again, on our way back from a hockey game. Ah, yes. Hockey is one of those sports where you don't get to stay around at home for long at all. Which is why I'm so glad my son has not had interest. Rexter, well done. There's still plenty of races left, Stunt Mama's Mama. So feel free to !play to play. At a low ebb and in a weak state of health, Beryl quickly deteriorated and sadly passed away before she had a chance to join me. The autopsy report revealed that she was 6 months pregnant. I was directly unable to involve myself in the proceedings. Beryl and the child she was carrying, my son, were buried in a marked grave with an engraved headstone at Bovey Tracy Cemetery. Excuse me. Bovey Tracy Cemetery in the market town of Newton Abbot. This was all thanks to the kindness and intervention of my friends at the Masons. I was heartbroken and overcome with grief and the remorse when I learned of Beryl's demise from John Gregson. He advised me not to attend the funeral, and I reluctantly agreed, acknowledging that it would be far too risky. A decision I bitterly regretted. Losing Beryl had cut through my soul. She was the only woman I ever loved. I'd lost the most important person in my life, and I vowed never to marry again. Although I couldn't be at the interment, John agreed to my request to have the priest recite a few words at the graveside by the English writer and poet Christina Rossetti. I chose Remember Me, a heart-rending poem that personified the hope and grief of death and remembrance. This was a semi-pro game in a larger town near us. It was a lot of fun. Ooh. Those games can be a lot of fun to go to. So here is the poem by Christina Rossetti. Remember me when I am gone away, gone far away into the silent land, when you can no longer hold me by the hand, nor do I half turn to go, yet turn to stay. Remember me when no more, day by day, you will tell me of our future that you planned. Only remember me, you understand. It will be too late to counsel or pray. A bow of respect. Rexter, I am in the lead, sir. Those lines had remained indelibly on my mind for the past 17 years, and would remain so until I shuffled off the mortal coil. Oh my, there's an ad starting. I'm gonna snooze that. Next race, MSLA Raceway. Racked with grief and remorse for what could have been, Jim could see how much I was suffering and took pity on me. He told me to take some time out and travel. From the money he gave me and my savings, I soon had enough to try to try to make my mark on the world. Exclamation point, play to play. Really, Rexter? You're in, buddy. You're in. I'd read about the vast discoveries of gold worldwide, so I put a pin on the map and decided on South Africa, setting sail in the spring of 1890 for Durban. Jim thought I was mad, but promised there would always be a place for me at Kildare if things didn't work out. I found work as an individual miner, then joined a company in 1895 before returning to Ireland 4 years later. While in South Africa, I became heavily involved with various criminal organizations. In 1886, the Witwatersrand gold rush in the Transvaal resulted in the formation of Johannesburg. By 1896, it boasted a population of 100,000. The young, vibrant city nurtured every species of vice and criminal syndicates with roots in New York, and London flourished in the new city. By the mid-1890s, control of the entire Witwatersrand gold industry was in the hands of half a dozen massive mining houses, with capital raised mainly from London and New York. Corruption was rife. I am not on the correct page. There we go. It was in the environment that I cut my teeth. Abduction, embezzlement, extortion, and protection were the order of the day. Officials in London wanted the gold field to be brought within the orbit of the British Empire. The denial of foreign, primarily British, miners having the right to vote in Johannesburg resulted in a raid. It resulted in something else. Night Marcher, thank you so much for raiding me. You didn't have to do that. I thought you'd still be playing. It's so good to see you. Welcome in. I believe I also raided myself. So, let me close that, so that's not confusing.
Mank, is that you?
Yeah, I'm running around on the phone.
Bang, bang, bang.
Nice.
9 hours? That is a long time. I'll give you that. Well, thank you for coming in. Those of you that don't know me, I am a book reader, voice actor, and then once a week we also play a game. So, yeah, that is a quick moi. Thank you so much for being here. Marcher, you've been streaming a long time. Go get some rest, get some noms, do what you gotta do. I appreciate you coming to me, and for anyone else that was in the crowd, if you're sticking around, happy to have you. If you got a raid and run, I totally understand. But thank you so much. Resulted in the Boer War in October 1899, signaling that it was time for me to put down my tools and return home to Ireland. Jim welcomed me back to the fold, greeting me with open arms. I could see the glint in his eye at the considerable funds I'd acquired through dubious means in South Africa. I repaid all the money I borrowed, and to show goodwill towards Jim and the business, I added a considerable amount of investment, thus increasing my shareholding in the stables and bloodstock agency. I was no longer just an assistant trainer, but a true partner with a 50% stake in a thriving business. I was determined to work hard and see the enterprise flourish and become a respected challenger to the other leading equine establishments. Yet, despite the newfound purpose, there were still moments when melancholy weighed upon me. Thoughts of Beryl cast a dark shadow over my spirit. Rexer. My guy. Thank you for the resub. And you can't tell me not to spin for this one. Because I bloody well we. Wasn't me, damn finger. I'm so sorry you were hacked. I'm so sorry. Streamer picks. Streamer picks curls, because why the heck not? I am glutton for punishment. Obviously. No spinning? You didn't say, and it was too late. So sorry. I'm going to do the other spinning, though. I hope you land on the spot. It also helps if I can type. You don't have to say? Yes, you do. Oh. You're stuck between page 30 and 31. I am so sorry. But it was a valiant effort. I completely moved my finger. Yes. During my bleakest hours in South Africa, despair had pressed upon me so heavily that I even contemplated ending my life. You are stuck all right? But during those bleak times, I had a few good friends who helped and encouraged me to see the positive things in life. I was determined to move forward and clung to a single, unwavering resolve to honor my wife's memory and to preserve and make right what had been lost. It was an interlude I would not like to relive nor wish on anyone else, with one exception. My sworn enemy, Sherlock Holmes. Even after all those years, my heart was still bursting with malignancy towards the detective. Like an itch I couldn't scratch. He'd taken everything from me. The love of my life, my inheritance, and my child. I was determined to exact my revenge no matter how long it took. I wanted him to know what it felt like to have one's world end. Consequently, I was cautious about whom I kept company, continuing my protection racket at arm's length. It was by chance that I discovered Holmes' double life. The irony was never lost on me that I'd found out about his secret marriage to the enchanting Irene Adler, just as he'd found out about mine. How fitting that, after discovering my wife's identity, I came to discover his. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes Chapter 9. Stepmama's mama winning that race. She's on the map, folks. She's on the board. And now we're going down to the lakeshore. Chicka-boom-boom, chicka-boom-boom. I should not quit my day job. 60 seconds on the clock. Good luck. You know, KD has got such a way about her with her writing style. She does an excellent job of keeping the language, even in narration, to the correct era, you know? I love it. It's magnificent. Okay. We are about to embark on Chapter 10, but before we do, I am going to get some of the curls out of the way because their number is getting quite too high. Wouldn't you agree? Good. I agree as well. Alrighty. 20 regular curls coming off the count. Yoo-hoo. Let's see. Where there you are. Oops. Did it again. My bad. Okay. Feeling strong. And I think, yep, ads are starting. So we'll wait for the ads and then we'll keep going. Okay. So, Rexter, my guy. What'd you get up to this weekend? Hang out with the fam? Go anywhere? Do anything? Make any memories? Yesterday we went to a comedy show. Ooh. The only comedy show I think I've been to for certain is it's a group that has, you know, the name of the group is in a lot of different places. Members obviously change, but they're called Guys in Ties. They do a lot of improv. It's very, very fun stuff. Do you mind if I share his name? He is good and on YouTube. Yeah, go for it. By all means. Maybe it's someone I've seen in person. You never know. You never know. I love a comedy show. Anything that makes me laugh, I'm all for it. Good-hearted humor is not lost on me at all. Gives the brain a boost, gives my abs a good workout. What's not to love, you know? All right, if you were afflicted by ads, I am very apologetic. Thank you for bearing through those. But we are back, which means we can carry on with Chapter 10. Nemur about Nassar, and he's on Twitch too. Nemur the Future. Or Nemur, maybe? I have not heard of that name, but thank you for sharing. That's pretty cool. Like I said, I love a good comedy show. I do. let's see. Chapter 10 puts us on page 75 of the printed copy, which, by the way, here is a link. Please check that out when you get a chance. Chapter 10 is still from Robert's perspective. And in Italian, it is Una cosa di bellezza, which, assuming I said that right, translates to a thing of beauty. A thing of ain't she a beauty? Man, she is just a thing of beauty. Well, I'll be. All right. Page 75. Jim Sweeney and I traveled to Milan in the summer of 1905 at the invitation of one of our owners, Paddy and Niam O'Doherty, who insisted on paying our traveling expenses. The O'Dohertys had a runner in the Gran Premio di Milano, a prestigious annual flat horse race held at the San Siro Milan racecourse for 3-year-olds and upwards. Initially, Paddy and Niam had reservations about their colt Olmo. He wasn't much of a looker. A plain, sparely made bay, notoriously hot-headed and highly strung. I remember the cold February day Paddy and Niam came to inspect the horse at the stables to see how he'd fared over the winter. I heard them debating with Jim whether to enter the colts in a valuable stakes race at Ballydoyle on St. Patrick's Day. The O'Dohertys shook their heads in disbelief. They doubted the colt was up to the task. A racing journalist had unkindly described Olmo as slow as an old boat, but Jim brushed off their concerns. You won by 1 second? All it takes is 1 millisecond, sir. 1 second is like a lifetime. 60 seconds on the clock. I gotta remember how to do an Irish accent. Crap. Ah, he'll be grand, he said in his thick Irish brogue as he puffed away on his cigar over a mug of coffee in the stable's kitchen. Jim explained to the bemused O'Dohertys that the colt had flourished over the past few months, thanks to my unconventional training methods. Each morning at dawn, I took Olmo to the gallops before the rest of the string appeared, working him hard and feeding him a mash of oats grown in the richest soil. Moreover, I insisted he had one of our grey Connemara ponies Pumpkin in his box for company, a comfort that seemed to settle his spirit. Through these unorthodox methods, the colt behavior and general deportment had improved significantly, having grown strong with plenty of natural vigor. Jim was highly complimentary in explaining this marked improvement with a fine testament to my continued efforts. The O'Dohertys followed Jim and me to the stables, watching as Jim opened the loose box and removed the rug before leading the colt into the yard, where his groom, Tom O'Connor, quickly mounted him. Paddy and Niam released a collective gasp of delight, staggered by how their Rangi Bay colt with a large white star had filled out and developed into a sleek, capricious, well-made specimen, rippling with well-defined muscles. The colt had grown into himself over the winter months, standing at 16 hands high. He was the double of his sire, Orme. Paddy and Niam were even more impressed when Tom rode the colt onto the gallops, joining 2 of Jim's best milers, Spectacular and Rosalion. Paddy gazed at his stopwatch in astonishment as Olmo streaked past, tearing up the ground in a blistering display of speed and stamina. Despite being eased down before the finish line, the colt finished 5 lengths in front of the other horses. This was an impressive performance and a massive step from Olmo's juvenile form. Of course, the O'Dohertys readily agreed to Jim's advice to enter their horse for the stakes race, which he went on to win empathetically by 10 lengths. The bookmakers and punters were equally impressed, promoting Olmo as the 3rd favorite of the Grand Premio di Milano. What a day that was. Racing at its most exquisite. Nothing more, nothing less. The race attracted an audience from far and wide, from around the globe. We joined the men in top hats and tails, shouting words of encouragement as they cheered their riders from the rails. Well suited to the strong gallop, Olmo responded to his jockey's urging, cutting up the ground as he rallied from midfield at the final furlong. Carrying the O'Dohertys' distinctive purple and gold silks, he finished a commendable 2nd to the remarkable Keepsake, who crossed the line half a length ahead, greeted by the crowd's thunderous reaction as he reclaimed his crown, first won in 1903. Securing 2nd place in such a prestigious event was a triumph for a bloodstock agency, acknowledging our noble endeavors and building on the colt's remarkable heritage. As an entire, Olmo's value would later be proven at stud. Little stud muffin. The O'Dohertys, having backed their horse to win at 10-1 for the stakes race in Ireland, took each way ante-post at 8-1 for the Grand Premio di Milano, winning a substantial amount of money, as those odds were quickly slashed to 7-2 after the colt's impressive run at Ballydoyle. We celebrated our good fortune with drinks in the hospitality tent. That's where I first spotted Miss Adler and her husband, Luca Sapori, congratulating Keepsake's owners and chatting freely at the bar, along with the braying toffs and a gaggle of champagne socialities dressed in satins and bows, raising an elegant glass of bubbly, while smiling and clinking glasses. But it wasn't just Miss Adler's charm and outstanding beauty that drew my attention. Something in the way the man next to her looked at her. Those strangely familiar mannerisms. May I introduce my wife, Neen? Recognizing those dulcet tones, I spun around as if I'd seen a ghost. At first, I couldn't believe my eyes, but there was no mistake. It was undoubtedly Holmes. Despite the disguise, I would have recognized Sherlock Holmes anywhere. Those astute grey eyes, the slim, raw-boned, athletic figure. Admittedly, he was older and spoke in an Italian accent when he'd introduced Adler to the guests in the hospitality tent, celebrating the jubilant owners. My instinct was to confront my nemesis, Elias Luca Sapori, but then I realized that security would likely bar me from the course, and the polizia would arrest me if I made a scene. I couldn't risk the detective recognizing me and discovering my secret identity. So I made my excuses to Jim and the O'Dohertys, faking a headache, blaming my affliction on too much champagne. I headed to the exit of the course with a wiry smile on my face and a happy heart in need of intoxicating refreshment to toast my good fortune. I was about to hail a hansom when I bumped into the renowned horse trainer, Ernest Angelino, who, after shaking hands with and greeting me warmly, invited me to his house for drinks and a handful of friends, mainly fellow trainers and owners, for what he described as an intimate gathering. Being congenial, I gladly accepted the invitation, and the ride in Angelino's chauffeur-driven Lavish A5 limited edition upper-class tour. It was an astonishing piece of work, a car that would turn heads wherever it went. I sank back into the comfortable plush leather seats, admiring the scenery as Angelino and I chatted on our journey. 10 minutes later, we arrived at Angelino's magnificent residence, the prestigious Inanzituto. Yep, Inanzituto Racing Stables di Milano. The car pulled up at the end of a sweeping driveway overlooking landscape gardens with peacocks strutting along the lawn. The gardens boasted a beautiful ornate water fountain with a bronze statue of the black stallion Bucephalus. Bucephalus, Alexander the Great's favorite steed. We entered a vast hallway with parquet design marble flooring, its ceilings adorned with cut glass crystal chandeliers. Angelino ushered me into a grand drawing room where I was introduced to the rest of the gathering. We sipped wine and entered a genial conversation for some time before the guests made their excuses one by one and retired for the evening. While Angelino was bidding farewell to the last of the revelers, I took a sip from my glass, glancing around the room. My eyes were drawn to an exquisite painting on the wall that had caught my attention earlier. I had a little knowledge of Renaissance art, which I studied as part of my school's curriculum. I was also familiar with the many Renaissance paintings of my ancestors that decked the walls of the Baskerville Manor. Apart from that, my appreciation of fine art would have been considered shallow. Since childhood, I'd always found it hard to divorce appreciation from possession, but I had never felt such a sensation of utter and complete rapture as I did sitting in front of that canvas. Everything else played into insignificance. I tried to turn away, but couldn't divert my gaze. The impetus to gaze up at the portraits hung in all its glory over the fireplace proved irresistible. I quivered with excitement as the figure of Saint Veronica met my imperious attention, mesmerized by its stunning beauty. I felt a burning desire to walk out with the portrait under my arm. When Angelino re-entered the room, he noticed me admiring the artwork, appearing amused by my interest. He then became animated, laughing when I asked if he'd ever considered selling the painting. Angelino explained that it would never be sold. He had previously turned down 3 highly competitive offers from dealers and a Renaissance collector. The portrait had been in his family for almost 200 years and would be handed down to his eldest son, Leonardo. Angelino pointed to the picture, saying he had 4 passions, which were his family, horses, his fledgling company, Liguori cars, and this little masterpiece. When I inquired about the artist, Angelino told me the painting was said to be by Giorgione, who was born in Venice in 1477. It was apparent that Angelino was smitten and highly knowledgeable about the precious little treasure. He continued to explain that after the artist's apprenticeship under Giovanni Bellini, his talents were duly recognized amongst his peers. He soon rose to prominence, becoming a master of his craft. Despite a rapidly successful career, Giorgione's life was tragically cut short in his early 30s after contracting bubonic plague. His body became covered with pustules, finally succumbing to the deadly disease. Unfortunately, only 6 pieces of Giorgione's artwork remained, leaving much of his work to idle speculation and rumors. One precious and characteristic piece painted in his innovative style was a small to medium-sized portrait of the Blessed Veronica of Milan, painted in extraordinary detail and now hanging on Angelino's wall. The painting was dated around 1500, and despite considerable research, could not categorically be attributed to Giordion, one of the most enigmatic Renaissance artists. A master of poetic mood created through idealized form, color, and light. Although, as Angelino was keen to point out, despite the painting being unsigned, all the leading experts on Giordion and his contemporaries who had the privilege of inspecting the painting harbored no doubt that the master had created it. All of this, the fascinating background of the artist and the exquisite work of the art, instilled in me the desire to own this beguiling piece one day. I suddenly felt jealous of Angelino's influence, money, and appreciation of fine art. I realized relieving him of one of his great passions in life would be no simple or easy task. His elaborate alarm system was wired meticulously to the painting, secured to the wall by heavy-duty combination bolts, with the frame shielded by reinforced unbreakable glass. For now, I was prepared to let it be. After all, I already had Holmes to contend with. Eventually, I bid farewell to Angelino, offering him a smile and a firm handshake, mindful that I needed to remain in favor for now. I realized I was in a unique position being privy to this information about the painting. We would return to Ireland by boat in 10 days, so the following morning I hired the services of Emilio Rodriguez, who was said to be the finest undercover agent in Milan. He came highly recommended by the Camorra, one of the oldest and largest Italian criminal organizations originating from the Campania region of southern Italy. I was careful not to disclose Luca Sapori's true identity. I decided to keep that knowledge to myself, in case anyone with a grudge had the same idea. I knew I wasn't the only person whose feathers had been ruffled by the world-famous detective. My contacts in London told me his list of enemies was as long as my arm. It took nearly a year to gather all the information needed, including the Sapori's address, where their children went to school, and how frequently Luca Sapori went away to work in London. My agent ascertained that Sapori would return to Milan in June for the summer holiday, to spend time with his family and accompany his wife to the races, as was his custom. Emilio sent me the photographs of the children, Nico and Charlotte, their pet dog, a chocolate-colored Labrador, and the family villa in Via Torina. Before putting my plan into action, I decided rather than inflict physical harm on Holmes or his family, as part of my abduction plot, I intended to hit the celebrated detective where it hurt in his pocket, in addition to causing mental anguish. Consequently, I spent days meticulously preparing, going through everything, continually writing and rewriting possible outcomes and biding my time until the right moment for my plan to have the most significant impact on the Sapori family. Holmes may have been celebrated for his powers of deduction, but I, under my alter ego, Janus, who perceived with precision, would take the upper hand and wound him most deeply. Nothing afforded me greater satisfaction than witnessing my nemesis crumble beneath my design and come out the ultimate victor. It was a risky strategy. If anyone recognized my position, it would be untenable. Still, with my eyes on the prize, I was willing to take risks, knowing I would secure sufficient funding to finance my operation following my meeting with Emilio. I had no personal axe to grind against Irene Adler, having met her once at a wedding in London many years ago. It was before she married the lawyer Godfrey Norton. It turned out that she was a friend of the groom, my cousin's half-brother Henry Hodgson. My wife and I were introduced to Miss Adler at the reception as Mr. and Mrs. Valdelure, our assumed names at the time. We found Irene Adler charming, witty and intelligent, but she only stayed briefly, stating that she had a pressing engagement later that day. It wasn't long after she met Godfrey Norton. I knew this because Jim's sister, a tractor, delivered Miss Adler's daughter at their home in Kensington. The child, Rosemary, was born prematurely and tragically died shortly after birth. The fact that Irene Adler had already lost one child under tragic circumstances played on my conscience for a while. Still, she was married to my hated enemy and had to be prepared for the consequences of that liaison. As my mother used to say, if you lie down with dogs, you'll get up with fleas. I considered abducting Miss Adler instead of the boy, but then I decided my first choice would have a much more significant impact. Holmes was going to suffer all right, like I had. It was hard to imagine the great detective with a wife and children, and I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. Although, as a man of the world, I could understand it. When Irene Adler locked those violet eyes on you, there was nowhere to hide. They were mesmerizing, although she seemed impervious to the spell she cast. And that concludes Chapter 10. It's kind of cool that we're getting this kind of in-depth back history of the antagonist, Robert Barrett. It's always good to know why someone goes to such great lengths to do what they do, especially with criminal intent. Much better than just going, he took something from me and now I'm gonna kill him. That almost seems dull. This tea, however, is not. Oh, so good. What time is it? Wow, 7:38. Okay. All right, well, Chapter 11 is a short one. It's only like 4-ish pages. So by the time that's done, the races will be over and we'll be able to raid out. So allow me. Chapter 11, also from Robert's perspective. Intenzioni mortali. Deadly intentions. Jim and I arrived back in Madden's town to cheers and whistles from the stable staff and an abundance of congratulatory notes from numerous owners and trainers. Then, 2 weeks later, Ernest Angelino wrote to Jim to say the connections of the equine heroines, Princess of Lombardy and Duchess of Tuscany, were impressed with how my controversial training methods had transformed Olmo. Initially an unconsidered horse, a humble selling plater, with dubious form, now risen to the giddy heights of Group 2 status and a potential future champion. The owners, John and Christina Upton, whom I was introduced to at Angelino's drinks reception, insisted on sending the fillies to Kildare for the winter months to receive specialized training before their upcoming group races the following spring. Angelino's passion for horses was unprecedented. He told me in Milan that he'd used a huge chunk of his director's income from Liguara cars to invest in breeding high-quality thoroughbreds, snapping up the best brood mares at the Tattersall sales, ensuring the leading stallions covered them. Angelino had an almost obsessive ambition to win the Triple Crown in England. But, of course, he needed money, and lots of it, to realize that dream. Based in Genoa, near the docks, Liguira Cars was a recent addition to the car market. The company was formed 3 years before by Angelino, the director and principal shareholder. The company's future looked assured, but Angelino needed further investment to expand and compete with the leading manufacturers. He was confident that creating a share issue would attract the right investors, giving him the funds necessary to ensure his company's long-term future. With Liguria Cars' much anticipated success, Angelino was confident he could take on the big boys and boasted he would build a world-beating racing car that would make him rich beyond his wildest dreams and fund his grand passion. I must admit, I had my reservations. Angelino was keen for us to accept the fillies. Still, they were high flyers with formidable reputations, and I was concerned about how they would adapt to the arduous boat journey and the transition to Irish soil. Unfortunately, my concerns were justified. After arriving at the receiving center in Dublin, both horses contracted epizootic lymphangitis. It sounds terrible. Which remained dormant during the transportation to our stables. The fillies became listless after a few days of training and being turned out in the paddocks with the other horses. When their feed of oats and grass hay remained untouched the following morning, it became apparent that they were unwell. Jim immediately called our equine vet, Oisin of Flaherty, who confirmed our worst fears after taking routine blood tests. It could be seen from the telltale nodules swelling along their legs and necks that the fillies had tragically succumbed to the deadly contagious virus with little chance of recovery. The only humane thing to do was to shoot the infected horses. This was a wretched and painful affliction that rendered them lame and feverish as the infection spread insidiously through the lymphatic vessels. An air of hopelessness descended, profoundly affecting every staff member. This epidemic was a disaster for our stables. Between the winter of 1905 and the spring of 1906, Jim and I lost many of our fine thoroughbreds. The few horses we managed to save were quarantined for 6 months. Jim and I lost valuable prize money and training fees, massively diminishing our stock. Future potential owners, once keen for us to train their horses, turned away, ignoring our calls and letters. Consequently, I had to dig deep and borrow money from unscrupulous people to keep my share of the business going. It was all too much for Jim, who, after watching his life's work destroyed along with his reputation, hit the bottle hard and smoked opium copiously. Excuse me. Copiously, propelling himself into a prolonged drug-induced breakdown. He knew I blamed him for accepting the fillies in the first place, and relations between the two of us became strained. Apart from what occurred with my wife Beryl, I'd never been an exceptionally forgiving man, never one for turning the other cheek. I was more of an eye for an eye type of man. That was my nature. My hatred for Holmes and the man I'd once looked up to, Ernest Angelino, after the loss of so many prize-winning horses, dug deep into my soul. Revenge will be mine. In my darkest hour, I racked my brain until I eventually thought of a way to settle the score with Angelino while simultaneously exacting revenge on Holmes. It would require careful planning and an influx of money. The plan was to relieve Angelino of some of his substantial income by distributing the manufacture of Liguria cars, destroying his dreams if he refused to comply and give me what I wanted, his beloved Giorgione painting. It was an elaborate, detailed project, but I'd secured the backing of Rodriguez and his cronies. When I laid out my proposal before them, pointing out the substantial financial gains, they agreed to bankroll and assist me. They queried how I intended to remove the picture from Angelino's site and override the comprehensive security system connected to his mention. After I explained there was no risk involved to Rodriguez or his men, as they wouldn't steal the painting, they agreed to fit in with any plans. With my plans. Rodriguez demanded heavy interest, of course, but I was prepared for that. I didn't expect anything less from the man known as Il Resolver. I was confident the consulting detective and Irene Adler would pay handsomely for the return of their son, paving the way for the implementation of Operation Whistle. This would be my final hurrah before disappearing again, this time outside the continent. Initially, the first part of my plan was to target certain horses at the Ernest Angelino Racing Stables di Milano. Connie would be responsible for organizing the team to administer the same deadly fungus that infected the fillies, carrying out the deed late at night when the stables were closed to the public. That would ensure Angelino's prize-winning horses would infect the rest of the thoroughbreds, thereby jeopardizing the future of the stables. But, of course, that was only the beginning of my act of vengeance. And that concludes Chapter 11. Fubar, thank you for the lurk. Have a pleasant evening. Thank you for the read, Bookfather. Really enjoyed it. Well, thank you. That was a quick last chapter, but good timing, I would say, overall. In fact, there's no point finishing the Grand Prix because I've won most of the races. So, with that in mind, I'm going to pull up who we have right now and see who we can go say hello to. Oh, it looks like yep. I think we're going to go see Here There Be Monsters. They are doing their, I think it's, 7-year anniversary on Twitch. That's a long time. It is a long time. I have no idea how long this whole event will go on for, but they've been up streaming for 47 hours and change at the moment. And for every raid, sub, all that good stuff, it extends the time. So, if you're able, please copy that message. And we will go say hello. I want to real quick make sure I say again thank you so much to the folks being here, listening in. Thank you for the resubs as well. Very kind of you. Stop Mama's Mama, Rexter. I really appreciate you all being here. This is a great story. I'm having a lot of fun reading it. And we'll do more of that on Tuesday. But until then, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Have a good night.